Shalom family, and welcome to Voices of Zion News and Podcast. Today we begin an urgent series titled Unprotected, the crisis facing black women. Across America, from New York to Chicago, from Atlanta to Los Angeles, our sisters and daughters are facing a violent storm. Black women and young black girls are dying from senseless gun violence at rates higher than any other group. The shocking part is that their names rarely make national headlines. When the news cycle spins, their stories are often confined to local outlets, quickly forgotten by the wider world. This violence is not new. Since the transatlantic slave trade, the bodies of black women have been sites of trauma, exploitation, and neglect. In today's era, systemic racism, poverty, and lack of community protection converge to leave black women vulnerable. When shots ring out in major cities, it is often a black woman caught in the crossfire. When domestic violence escalates to deadly levels, the victim is too often a sister whose cries for help went unheard. Part of this series will expose the real stories, the lives cut short, the mothers who never came home, the daughters whose laughter was silenced. Another part will dive into the statistics, revealing just how widespread this crisis has become. But most importantly, we will not leave you with despair. We will search the scriptures for answers, for direction, and for the call that Yahweh is placing on the men of our communities to rise up and protect our women. This is not just news. This is a wake-up call. This is a cry for justice, for awareness, and for accountability. Today we lay the foundation. From here we move into real reports, real footage, and real lives that remind us of what is at stake. Across the United States, the overlap between domestic violence and gun violence has become a deadly reality for many black women. Studies show that when an abusive partner has access to a firearm, the likelihood of a black woman being killed increases fivefold. These tragedies rarely make national headlines, yet families and communities are left reeling. In Chicago, for instance, a 27-year-old black woman was recently killed in a West Side drive-by shooting. Her story, while devastating, is not isolated. It reflects a broader epidemic of how gun access turns domestic disputes and neighborhood tensions into deadly encounters. Fair use. Disclaimer: the following news clip is used for educational and reporting purposes under fair use. All credit goes to the original news station. Let's go to the footage from ABC7 Chicago, reporting on the West Side shooting that claimed the life of this young woman.
We have learned the identity of a woman shot and killed early yesterday morning in East Garfield Park. Police say 27-year-old Tia Bell was standing with a man on West Gladys and Springfield when she was shot. The man was wounded, and right now no arrests have been made. A fundraiser online posted by her family says Bell leaves behind 9 children.
Local reports often capture the stories that never reach national coverage. In many cases, the loss of black women to senseless gun violence is covered briefly, then forgotten by the wider media cycle. These reports, though small in scale, are vital because they tell the truth of what is happening in our neighborhoods. In Chicago's South Loop, a young black woman was killed and a man wounded in yet another drive-by. This incident happened 5 months ago, highlighting how these shootings are not isolated events, but part of a recurring pattern that tears families apart without warning. Fair use. Disclaimer: the following news clip is used for educational and reporting purposes under fair use. All credit goes to the original news station. Here is the CBS Chicago report on that South Loop shooting from 5 months ago.
A young woman is dead and a man is in the hospital after police say they were shot in the South Loop. Officers found the 2 victims inside a vehicle near 21st and Michigan. And if you take a look at some of this video right there, you can see bullet holes in the windshield. An 18-year-old woman was shot in the chest and died at the scene. A 38-year-old man who survived told police they were shot at by someone in another car. No one has been arrested.
Community gun violence remains one of the most urgent and under-addressed crises in cities across America. Roughly 1 month ago, during a weekend in Chicago, at least 55 people were shot and 8 fatally wounded. Among these incidents, a drive-by shooting in the Little Village neighborhood left 4 people injured, 3 critically. Witnesses reported that several suspects inside an SUV opened fire on the victims while they sat in their own vehicle. An act of violence so indiscriminate that anyone nearby could have been harmed. These attacks do not just affect the victims, they send shockwaves through entire neighborhoods. Families are left in fear, local businesses shutter temporarily, children witness violence that can scar them for life, and residents feel unsafe walking down streets they once considered familiar. The trauma extends beyond the direct victims. It touches everyone in the community, disrupting the sense of security and peace that is supposed to be a basic part of daily life. This isn't an isolated event. It is part of a cycle of violence that shows no signs of slowing. Every shooting, every drive-by, every senseless act of gunfire reminds us that our communities are under siege and that protecting our people requires urgent action from all of us. Fair use. Disclaimer. The following news clip is used for educational and reporting purposes under fair use. All credit goes to the original news station. Let's go to the footage from ABC 7 Chicago, reporting on the Little Village drive-by and the wave of gun violence that affected countless lives just 1 month ago.
It was a violent night in Chicago. At least 3 people were killed and many more wounded. Gunfire erupted near 82nd and Houston Avenue this morning, claiming the life of a 20-year-old man. Neighbors say the victim's father and sister were also wounded in the Saturday morning shooting they say was the result of a domestic dispute between one of the victims and another person. It's the latest outbreak of violence in Chicago.
There's always stuff brewing in certain factions, certain segments of the population, certain communities, and when those things bubble over, which is usually in the summer.
Just a few hours later and a few miles away in the 7200 block of South Dobson, an 18-year-old man was shot in his right thigh and took himself to the hospital. Investigators say he's not cooperating with responding officers. The spate of shootings continued for the next few hours, but began overnight. Late Friday night, a 22-year-old man was murdered as he stood on the sidewalk in the 2800 block of West Arlington. Witnesses say an unidentified gunman just walked up to the man and shot him. Before that, in a different neighborhood, a 17-year-old was shot and killed. The violence touched people who live in the city's Park Manor community. Police arrived there to find a man and a 37-year-old woman in an alley near 75th and St. Lawrence. It appears both were shot in a drive-by. Only the man survived. But despite all the gun violence, there were still efforts to keep the peace. Around 1,000 young people took part in the 3rd annual Downtown Day, sponsored by the community organization My Block, My Hood, My City and their supporters. The group hosted kids from the city's south and west sides with tours of key downtown destinations like museums, businesses, and other cultural locations in an effort to create access and positive opportunities.
Now, we ain't going to save everybody. You can't protect everybody, but I tell students you want to have big goals and stay away from people that are just maintaining.
Community activists and anti-violence advocates hope Saturday night will be less violent in the city. Chicago police are investigating all the shootings, but in most cases, no one is in custody and no arrests have been made.
When we move from the headlines to the data, the picture becomes even more disturbing. According to recent studies, Black women in America are disproportionately impacted by fatal violence. In fact, Black women are 3 times more likely to be killed by gunfire than white women. Across major cities, the pattern is the same. Their names rarely reach national platforms, but their blood stains the streets. The statistics tell us that between the ages of 15 and 34, homicide is one of the leading causes of death for Black women. That means our daughters, our sisters, our young women in their prime are not just at risk. They are targeted by a system of neglect, by communities plagued with crime, and by a lack of protection. Yet how often do we hear this? How often do we see national discussions about the crisis facing Black women? When Black men are killed, it sparks debate, protest, and political statements. And yes, their deaths matter deeply. But when our women are slain, their voices fade into silence. Numbers do not lie, but they do not cry. Behind every statistic is a family grieving, a community weakened, and a future erased. It's time we put these numbers front and center. Let's be honest, what we are facing is nothing short of an epidemic. In Washington, D.C., nearly 90% of women murdered in the past 5 years have been Black. In St. Louis, more than 75% of female homicide victims are Black. These numbers paint a picture of a community under siege, yet one that receives no national emergency declarations, no federal spotlight, no breaking news banners. It is as if America has decided that the lives of Black women are expendable, that their deaths are normal, that their blood is simply the cost of living in urban America. But we refuse to accept that. The epidemic is not only in numbers, it's in the lack of urgency, in the neglect of leadership, in the apathy of those with power to change policy and policing. Our women are dying, and too many people treat it as background noise. We must call it what it is: genocide in plain sight. Not all violence comes from strangers in the streets. For many Black women, the danger lives inside their own homes. Studies show that Black women are more likely to be killed by an intimate partner than women of any other race. This is betrayal at the deepest level, to be harmed by the one who promised to love and protect you. When we talk about protecting our women, we must also talk about healing our men. Too many of our brothers are broken by poverty, trauma, incarceration, and racism. Instead of finding healing, they lash out, and our women pay the ultimate price. We cannot ignore this. Silence in the face of domestic violence is complicity. Our sisters need protection not just from strangers, but sometimes from those closest to them. And as a community, we must be willing to confront this painful truth and rebuild what has been broken. The violence does not stop at the grave. Even for those who survive, the trauma is deep and lasting. Black women live with the constant fear of being unsafe in their own neighborhoods. Mothers send their daughters out the door with a prayer, hoping they return alive. Sisters text each other late at night to make sure they made it home. The stress of living under such constant threat takes a toll on mental and physical health. Anxiety, depression, and PTSD are widespread, yet rarely treated. Hospitals and clinics in Black neighborhoods are underfunded. Counseling is expensive or stigmatized. So many women are forced to carry their pain alone. The violence doesn't just kill bodies, it steals peace. It destroys joy, it silences laughter, and in this silence the enemy thrives. As we look at these statistics and stories, one question rings louder than all the rest. Who will stand for our women? It is clear that the government has not stepped up. National media has not stepped up. Too often, even the church has not stepped up. So the responsibility falls to us, the men of our communities. Black men cannot be absent. We cannot be passive. We cannot let our women die in silence while we stand by. Yahweh calls us to be watchmen on the walls, protectors of our households, shepherds of our communities, to stand firm against violence, to guide with righteousness, to create safe spaces for our women and children. The statistics are horrifying, but they should not paralyze us. They should mobilize us. The question is, will we rise or will we continue to fall? When our women are dying at such high rates, leadership should be shouting from the rooftops. Yet what do we see? Silence. Local politicians might attend a vigil or give a brief statement, but how often does it translate into policy change, funding, or sustained attention? Almost never. In Congress, laws are debated endlessly, yet few directly address the crisis facing Black women. Gun control conversations rarely focus on how firearms impact women of color. Domestic violence laws often lack teeth. Resources for prevention and trauma care are scarce. The leadership vacuum leaves Black women vulnerable. The very people entrusted with protecting their communities are either too distracted or too cowardly to confront the reality. If these numbers described any other group, the response would be swift and decisive. But for Black women, the silence is deafening. Our women are not expendable. They are not statistics. They are the backbone of our families and our nation. It's time leadership treated them as such. The Black church has historically been a refuge and a place of strength, but on this issue, too many pulpits are quiet. Sermons rarely confront the plague of violence against Black women. Church programs are often centered on spiritual growth while neglecting physical safety and social reality. How can the body of Mashiach claim to be a place of healing if it ignores the wounds of its own daughters? Too many churches are more concerned with membership numbers, tithes, and political influence than standing on the wall for our women. Yahweh did not call us to comfort the comfortable. He called us to protect the oppressed, to bind up the brokenhearted, to bring light to those in darkness. If the church refuses to cry out, then it has lost its prophetic voice. We need leaders who will not just preach, but act, who will not just sing, but fight, who will not just gather, but protect. When violence strikes, Black mothers carry the heaviest burden. They are the ones burying their daughters. They are the ones raising children alone when fathers are lost to prison or death. They are the ones working 2 or 3 jobs just to keep food on the table while living in fear that violence will knock at their own door. The tears of Black mothers water the soil of America, yet their cries rarely make headlines. Politicians might mention them in speeches, but then policies fail to change. Communities might hold rallies, but then life returns to normal until the next tragedy strikes. We cannot overlook the emotional and spiritual load placed on our mothers. They are not just strong black women. They are flesh and blood with breaking points, with hearts that can only take so much. Protecting black women means relieving some of that crushing burden. Beyond the gun violence and domestic abuse, there is another tragedy that often goes unnoticed: the disappearance of black girls. Across America, thousands of young black girls vanish each year, often without national attention. Their faces rarely appear on primetime television. Amber alerts are less likely to be issued. Media coverage, if it comes at all, is short-lived. This silence is deadly. Missing black girls are more vulnerable to trafficking, exploitation, and violence. And yet their stories fade from public memory almost as soon as they begin. If America truly valued black girls, their disappearances would cause outrage. Instead, families are left to search on their own, raising money for flyers, begging police to take their cases seriously. This is violence too, the violence of indifference. At the heart of this crisis lies a question of responsibility. Who will defend our women, if not us? For too long, too many black men have been absent, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. Some have turned to violence themselves, becoming predators instead of protectors. Others have checked out, too consumed by their own struggles to see the pain of their sisters. This cannot continue. We are called to be kings, to walk in righteousness, to cover our women with love, not harm. Protection is not optional. It is our duty, our covenant, our divine role. This doesn't mean empty words. It means building community patrols, mentoring young men, confronting brothers who harm women, demanding accountability from leadership, and creating safe havens where black women know they are seen and valued. Our women are crying out. Will we answer? The violence against black women doesn't just claim lives, it scars souls. Survivors of shootings, abuse, or loss carry trauma that seeps into every corner of their lives. Many wrestle with PTSD, anxiety, or depression, but too often healing resources are out of reach. Therapy is costly, mental health stigma still lingers, and culturally competent care for black women is scarce. Yet healing is essential. Without it, cycles of pain repeat across generations. A daughter who watches her mother die to violence grows up with wounds that shape her choices. A young woman who loses her best friend to gunfire may numb her pain in destructive ways. The community must build spaces of healing. Therapy circles, safe houses, mentorship programs, prayer gatherings that address trauma honestly. And black men must be allies in this process, not bystanders. Healing is not weakness. It is warfare against the spirit of violence. Every life lost tells us that accountability is missing. Too often people know who pulled the trigger or who beat that woman, but silence reigns. Fear of being labeled a snitch outweighs the responsibility of protecting our daughters and sisters. We cannot build safe communities if we protect predators more than victims. The code of silence has become a coffin for too many women. Accountability doesn't just mean punishment. It means mentorship for young men at risk, intervention when violence is brewing, and a culture that rejects the idea that harming women is ever acceptable. Our communities must rise with courage, saying, "We will not let this happen here." True accountability begins with us. At the root of our struggle is a spiritual fracture. Violence thrives when we walk away from Yahweh's covenant. Disobedience breeds curses, and what we see today, the bloodshed, the broken families, the constant mourning, mirrors what the scriptures warned would come if we turned from his ways. But covenant can be restored. The Most High calls us back to holiness, to obedience, to walking in righteousness as a people. Protecting our women is not just a social issue, it is a covenant issue. When men refuse to lead with love and women are left unprotected, the entire nation suffers. The return to covenant means guarding life as sacred, treating women as daughters of Zion, and building households rooted in Torah. Without that return, no law, no program, no march will ever stop the bloodshed. Scripture gives us the blueprint. In Ephesians, husbands are called to love their wives as HaMashiach loved the assembly, laying down his life for them. In Isaiah, the prophet speaks of defending the widow and the fatherless. In Proverbs, wisdom cries out that the righteous deliver those who are drawn to death. The biblical solution to this crisis is not complicated. Restore righteous manhood, protect womanhood, strengthen families, and walk in obedience to Yahweh's commands. It is a call for men to rise as shepherds, not wolves, as protectors, not predators. When men walk in covenant, women are safe. When communities walk in righteousness, violence has no home. This is not just theory. It is the divine order we must return to. Brothers, this is where the burden falls squarely on us. For too long we have been silent while our women are dying at alarming rates. We have scrolled past headlines, ignored cries for help, and allowed predators to roam freely in our communities. The time for excuses is over. Every day that passes without action is another day that our daughters, sisters, and mothers remain vulnerable. It's time for real men of HaMashiach to rise. Voices of Zion News and Podcast are here to blow the shofar and sound the alarm, calling on every righteous man to take his place as a protector, a shepherd, and a leader. Protecting our women is not optional. It is a sacred duty. It is covenantal. When men walk in the ways of HaMashiach, guided by Torah and righteousness, violence loses its power and communities are restored. This is not just about guarding bodies. It's about restoring hearts, families, and neighborhoods. Mentorship, community patrols, confronting brothers who harm women, building safe spaces for our sisters, teaching our sons respect and honor. These are all acts of war against the spirit of violence that seeks to destroy us. A real man does not look away. A real man steps in. A real man stands for justice. Our women are crying out. They need men who will lay down their lives if necessary, who will stand firm in truth and righteousness, who will demand accountability from leaders, from brothers, and from themselves. The call is urgent because the time for silence is over. Every life lost is a reminder of what is at stake. Voices of Zion News and Podcast will continue to report, to expose, to remind our communities of the crisis, and to sound the shofar, calling men to awaken and fulfill their divine role. It is a call to courage, a call to action, a call to righteousness. Our women deserve nothing less. Stand up, protect them, lead as HaMashiach intended. This is the covenant we must honor. This is the mission we must embrace. Our women, our families, our communities, they are counting on us. And the time to rise is now. Shalom.